All right, students, here we are with video number 4. So far, you have arranged your 9 squares into the pattern that you want to appear on the front of your pillow. You have 9 squares, so there are 5, one in the center in each corner, and then the 4 that fill in. I'm going to remind you that each one of these rows that I have now sewn together used to be separate, and you turned number 2 or number 1, you joined them at this little seam right here. Remember, every time we joined a square, we would take pins and pin together the square. We would use a ruler and we marked it at 1/4 of an inch, and then we threaded our needle with thread. We tied a knot, and then we did the back stitch all along where we drew the line. Remember, at the end, we always do a tailor's tack. So there's an anchor of a knot on this end, an anchor of a tailor's tack, 3 or 4 stitches right on top of each other down here. Then that opened up and you joined your first 2 squares. Now that is a permanent seam. Then you took square number 3, which was separate. You placed it on top of square number 2. You put 2 pins to hold it down. And I sewed this from this side. This is where you see my knot and my tailor's tack. I marked this seam at 1/4 of an inch using my ruler, and then I did the back stitch all the way from one edge to the other edge, so that when they're done, they look like this. You have the 2 seams, and on the right side, you have the smooth part of the seam on the right side, and you see all the raw edges and the stitching on the wrong side. So after you finished row number 1, then you did the same thing to row number 2, stitching here, and then opening those 2 out, attaching number 3, stitching here, and then you had row number 2, and then finally you did the same thing with row number 3. So all 3 of these have been stitched, all right? So now I'm going to show you how to put these rows together, okay? The first thing you want to do is work with rows 4, 5, and 6, and 1, 2, and 3. On your instructions, if you look at the instructions in your packet, we're going to put row 3 aside for a moment. And we're only going to work with the top row and the middle row, top and middle. In your instructions, after you've joined your squares so that you have 3 rows of 3, they tell you to take squares 4, 5, and 6 and lay them on top of 1, 2, and 3 with the right sides touching each other. And you know that we're going to join them right here, so we want to fold it this way, and we want our right sides to touch each other, and then we are going to join these. I'm going to pause this for a second and go get some pins. Okay, so now we're got the pins ready, and a reminder that, like I said, we took squares 4, 5, and 6. We're going to attach them together at this edge, which means we have to turn the right sides together. And then I want you to look at how the seams meet. I want you to make sure that the seams that you sewed right here and right here are exactly on top of each other. And I'm going to come down here and double check this one. I want those seams to be exactly on top of each other. Then I'm going to push that seam allowance outward. And on the other side, it's inward. And then I'm going to start pinning this together. I've got my edges even right here. They're very, very, very even. This one needs to be pulled down a little bit. They're very even. And I'm going to pin it together. If you have an iron, you can iron these seams open, but it's not exactly necessary. It will make your pillow lie very flat and nice. But I'll show you in a second what I've done on the other side after just a minute. Okay, here we go. And then when you get this much done, we're going to get a ruler and we're going to draw a line 1/4 of an inch from this edge all the way across here. And then we're going to stitch starting here and going all the way across down to here to join these two pieces of fabric. Okay, so that is sort of step one. Now I'm going to take a minute and I'm going to go and actually draw the line and stitch this. I will show you in a minute. Okay, so here we go. I've got a ruler, so I am going to find, here's the 1 inch. Remember, we've talked about this several times before. Let me pull you up so we can look at this ruler. Here is the 1 inch on this ruler. Here's the 1/2 inch. The 1/2 inch is between the 0 and the 1. We are going to make our seam at 1/4 of an inch. That's that second line that goes this way. So I'm going to put it on the edge, close to the edge of my fabric, and I'm going to make 1 hatch mark in the middle of each square. Let me put that 1/4 inch right on the edge and make a hatch mark there. And then we have just one more square left, 1/4 of an inch, and then make that hatch mark. And then we're going to lay the ruler across like this, and we're going to line up our hatch marks as well as we can. Sometimes this does not work so ideally. You can tell that this one seems higher. I'm going to actually kind of get this one drawn. I'm going to go ahead and draw across here. I don't know why exactly that one is so different. And that's okay. You can see that we'll make it work no matter what. Drew the line there, and then I'm just going to connect it in between. And there may be a little bit more of this one. Maybe it doesn't go right on the line that I drew. But now I have a good line that I can sew on. It starts right here, and I'm going to sew all the way to here. This line is hard to see because it's right on the edge of that stripe, which kind of makes it nice. So there's the line all the way across. And so now I will get my thread. I've already put thread in my needle. I've already tied a knot. And now I'm going to start back stitching right here as close as I can to the edge. And I'm going to go down and up and pull all the way until your knot catches. You don't want to get your fabric in the loop, so pull the loop off the fabric. There's my first stitch, and I'm going to make another stitch down and up on the line. By now, if you've already joined all of those little squares, you're getting used to doing this back stitch. This is something that you're kind of getting probably pretty fast. One of the things you don't want to do is get too big with it. Remember that the bigger and looser your stitches are, the weaker they are. If you want them to be permanent, they're going to have to be kind of smaller and a little bit tighter. Not so tight that they pucker the fabric, but a little bit tighter. So it looks like this. And you're going to stitch all the way to the end. Now I'm going to run out of thread probably about right here. So you know that I'm going to do a tailor's tack, 3 stitches on top of each other, cut the extra thread off, new thread for my needle, start right there, back stitch holding these down too. I'll probably get to about here, and I'll probably have to get new thread here, and then I'll finish all the way at the end, and I'll do another tailor's tack right at the end. I will come back and show that to you when I get it finished, okay? Okay, so I have now pinned those squares together. Then I drew my line. You saw me do that. And now I have come up right here. Here's my, my knot in my thread. And my back stitches go all the way down here. to the far end, and then there is a tailor's tack there. So now I've got 1, 2, and 3. Take this out, okay? So, whoops, there's still a pin in it, I can tell. There we go. So watch what happens when I open it out. These are now attached to each other. Squares 1, 2, and 3 are permanently attached to squares 4, 5, and 6, okay? So then I'm going to push this up, and we've got one more row right here. So 7, 8, and 9 need to flip over and rest on top of 4, 5, and 6 with their right sides touching each other. So again, I am going to line up. We see now, okay, yes. I'm going to line up these seams and make sure the seams are right on top of each other. And I'm going to line up these edges really carefully. Make sure the edges are right together. And let me come down here and line these up. Okay. And now you know we've got to hold them in place with pins. They will move if we don't. So I'm going to put a pin here to hold that seam in place. I'm going to put a pin here to hold that in place. And then I'm going to line these up a little bit more. Use a pin here. I'm going to put a pin in the middle right here. And then let's see how these kind of have gotten like this. I'm going to pull this up and line those up really well. And put a pin there. And then you know what I need to do next. I need to make those little hatch marks. I'm going to put the 1/4 inch right here. And I'm going to make a little mark 1/4 of an inch away from the edge. In the middle, put the 1/4 of the inch close to the edge, make my mark. And then over here, just one more ought to do it. Put the ruler 1/4 from the edge and make my mark, okay? And then we're going to take this and we're going to draw all the way across, connecting those lines. And this time, they line up amazingly well. Okay, so I'm going to hold this in. In fact, I'm going to have to approach it this way. I'm going to have to come at it this way so that I can hold it a little bit better. Look how well those line up this time. That's good. Okay, so I've got it planted. I'm going to draw the connecting line down here. Draw the line. I'm going to draw the middle one. And I'm going to draw, get my hand over here so I'm pressing down on it. And there is the line that goes all the way across at 1/4 of an inch. So I am going to put some thread in my needle. Let me do that. Put some thread in my needle. There we go. I already have a knot in my needle. And now I'm going to go down and up to get started. When I pull, you're going to see the knot catches, and then I immediately begin to backstitch. And I am going to connect these two pieces together along the line that I drew. So you can see I have this is about stitch number 3. That one was bigger than I want it to be, so I'm going to get a little bit smaller so that they're tight and very permanent. All right. So I'm going to keep on stitching here. I'll run out of thread. I'm going to do a tailor's tack when I do. Then I'll put a new thread and get about to here. Then I'll have to do another tailor's tack, and then I'll go all the way to the end. Okay? And I'll show it to you when I am done, and we'll see what happens next. Okay now. So I'm back again. I just stitched all the way here. Started there, went that way. You can see a tailor's tack here, There's another one here. I almost got to the end, but I still had to get new thread just for that one last inch. That's just the way it is. So now I'm going to take these pins out, and I will show you after you have sewn this bottom. I think I've got one more pin here, and I've got another pin here. So now when I fold this down, you can see that I have a complete pillow top, all sewn together, okay? So the first thing, these middle ones went on top of 1, 2, and 3, and I sewed those. Then I opened them out, and I put the bottom ones on top of the middle ones, pinned, drew my line, and stitched it on. So here is the way the pillow looks when you have the pillow top done. All right. I'll make one more video. Part 5 will show you how to completely finish this pillow. Looking forward to finishing it and also to seeing your wonderful pieces of work. Thank you.